times. We saw it in the LEC. It's been picked up in LCK quite a bit as well. You take Aerie onto the Jarvan, and you actually have a huge amount of burst at level 2. You can actually go in super, super hard. If Iwandy is proficient with the EQ flash combination, it's a guaranteed stun knock up onto someone like that. And the pressure that you garner with someone like a Kalista is just huge in that early game. You combo that with an Olaf, that's a volatile bot lane if you ever get caught out. So Iboy and Hong are going to have to be on their toes if they want to try and keep this one, but there is absolutely no AP damage here unless Cube decides to go full AP Gragas, which I don't think he will, as Fofo locks in the Lucian against the Azir.
Yeah, I think Rare Island have a pretty interesting team comp as well. They have a skirmish core of the Lucian and the Udyr, and I think they're just going to use that priority to make sure that however far ahead the Kalista and Jarvan can be, they also always have to be aware of the Lucian and Udyr just coming into their bot lane. So I kind of like the idea that they're throwing out here. It's basically priority and counter picks in the mid and jungle to sort of make sure that their bot lane of Aphelios can grow up and can develop into that late game monster that they need him to be.
All right, well, this is, like I said at the top of before we went into picks and bans, a big match for both of these teams. LNG looking to cement themselves as a solid playoff contender, and RA looking to climb up that ladder, get themselves as high a position as possible. They can equal out the LNG record of 4-3 if they take a win today, but 5-2 is an awfully lucrative offer here for LNG on the table, and I feel like both teams have very clear definitive win conditions, and both teams are going to be looking towards those to try and get this win as we jump onto the Rift. But looking straight away, I'm going to talk to you, Clement, straight off this now. What is an early game success for LNG given the bot lane and jungle that they have?
So I think what you're looking at is definitely to try and get kills on the Aphelios. That's going to be the #1 priority. You have a lot of great tools for that. Olaf is known as a bot lane ganking jungler in the LPL, and Kalista is always super aggro or early levels. So I think that's the main game plan, is just to make sure that, hey, Iboy doesn't get too far ahead of the curve. And if you can keep Iboy down and behind, then you have good split pushing options, you have good engage options coming in from the Camille as well. The comp kind of runs itself based on that point. But I think RA's composition is a little bit more interesting. Usually we think about team comps as matching power spikes, but RA's composition actually doesn't function that way. They're using their early game power spike of Udyr and Lucian, and these two champions that fall off very, very hard in the late game, to actually cover for Aphelios and make sure that they can still have a point in the late game to fight around. So it's a combo that I don't really like in terms of drafting, just covering, just having staggered power spikes. But if they can make this work out, if they can actually use the strength of Lucian and Udyr to accelerate Aphelios through skirmishes, then maybe they can have a very explosive game and try to close out LNG early.
Yeah, and this is something that I suppose everyone kind of talks about, Aphelios being a late game champion, needs to get towards those items. We saw last night in G2 versus Fnatic, no spoilers about whichever one's on it, but they took a 20-minute Baron with the Aphelios just having the right gun combination, having the right vision control, because he was able to get ahead. If you are able to find that advantage, you are able to absolutely 100% accelerate and snowball your lead. It becomes incredibly difficult to get on top of them because of the safety that we've seen with Thresh, and we're seeing a lot of the time that people won't even ban the Aphelios. They'll just ban the Thresh because it doesn't really work with a lot of other champions. The Thresh just gives you so much early game support and so much early game safety that it just becomes very difficult for you to kind of justify an Aphelios pick without that. It's kind of a situation where it's not equal to the one is not equal to itself without the other. It's kind of a weird kind of like disparity between the two champions.
And we have seen that a lot in the LPL as well. The Severin Crescendum combo and just taking down legendary objectives is really, really fast, and a lot of teams have been using that. If they're out of vision, then they can easily sneak a 3-man Baron to kind of accelerate the game past that point. So I think we are going to see maybe that come into effect between this game, but overall, LNG should be expected to play a lot through their bottom side, try to keep this Aphelios down. I think their top side of the map is much more scaling oriented in the Camille and the Azir, while on the other hand, Rare Adam will be coming down into the bot lane too, but the way they're going to do it is going to be a little bit different. They're not going to be coming through the strength of the bot lane itself, but they're going to be coming out of the priority that they should have off of the Lucian and the Udyr pick.
We'll have to wait and see where they go. But ladies and gentlemen, we do apologize for the delay. There seems to be a slight issue when getting into it. You can see the players just trying to keep as stoic and focused as possible. Once we get an update, we will let you know as soon as. Of course, we want to get into the game as quick as you guys do, and we do apologize. League Ops is working as best they can to try and get us in there. It looks to me like there might have been a slight issue with loading into the game, so it's most likely going to be a redo of the exact same picks and bans as they go into the game. Just take a little bit while to reset up, and again, we do apologize for the delay. Let's take this moment to talk about the season so far and how these two teams rank up. For LNG, I feel like for them, they've always been kind of like a low-tier playoff team. And for them, I would love to see them make a little bit of a deep run into the playoffs. And for anyone who doesn't know, we have 10 teams in our playoffs. It's 2 King of the Hill side brackets that then lead into a top 4 double elimination. It's very, very convoluted. There's a hell of a lot of games to get through and for us. And 12 series in total. It's a lot. It's a lot of games. But it does offer itself to, or lend itself to be able to set up a much better, a miracle run for a team. If you get in, you had a bad rough start to the season, but then you start to pick up steam at the late game stage, you could just sneak in a 10 and actually get into that kind of, playoff mentality.
It's definitely possible, and for me, LNG, when I did my preseason rankings, I had them around the 9th to 10th spot. And honestly, they have shot my expectations by quite a bit. I wasn't so sure about Icon coming in onto the roster, how he would feel like. And I also didn't think too highly of their bottom lane and their new top laner. I felt like this was a team that was really, really reliant on mid jungle, and that they would try to leverage the skirmishing potential of Icon and Tarzan together to kind of push this team forward. However, what I got was a completely different team. This was a team that actually plays very, very measured. They have a good macro play game. They're willing to play slow, and they know what they're doing. Icon, in interviews, he's really said that, hey, it feels so nice playing with Tarzan. He knows exactly what I want. And just looking at his champion pool, it's so different from his previous splits. He's willing to just sit mid and play these control mages and use his talent in ways that aren't super risky. So it's great to see the transformation of LNG and especially Icon. And I'm honestly just surprised by how well this roster has panned out.
Yeah, I think a lot of us had very big kind of unanswered questions. Obviously, Icon's been in the league for quite a while, has always been touted as a very decent mid laner, but in recent years we had really not seen it that much, and great to see him kind of coming back to some kind of decent form for him. Just an update, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else in between. There was an issue of in-game issue reported by Light. The investigation is happening right now, so they're seeing if they do need to try and change anything. We don't know if we're going to get the same picks or bans. We don't know if they have to swap out the PC. Once we get that information, of course, we will relay that to you. And I just thought, I think it was a Pokemon Pikachu mouse mat there. It looked very cute. A very arbitrary question. Mouse mat's going to come out. Have you seen upsets, Fnatic upsets mouse mat? Have you seen the size of it? It covers, like, he literally needs like a desk for himself because it covers about like 2 meters. It's a huge mouse mat. They literally, there was an interview, I believe, with Whippo or Selfmade. They literally was like, oh no man, I need you to move over because I need another table to put this entire mouse mat. That feels a bit egregious.
Yeah, that's super interesting because usually League of Legends players, they play at a much higher DPI compared to like FPS players, so they don't really need to use that much desk space. Like, this is something that I constantly been studying to find like the perfect setup for my mouse and like my mouse pad and all of these things. But an isometric game like League of Legends, the players usually play very differently to like CSGO, where they have to or Valorant, where they have to swing around their arms and control the mouse and do really wild turns. Most of the pro players, they actually play on like something like 800 effective DPI. It's much higher than most FPS titles, and you don't really need to move your hands around that much. So you're getting me really curious on how Upset kind of controls his champion.
Yeah, I'd love to see the full setup of that. I myself just have like a pretty standard looking one. It's just like, you know, gives me enough space to move. I kind of just move my wrist very quickly as such. I suppose, yeah, League of Legends players wouldn't really use it. You also get CSGO players or Valorant players or anything like that. They like turn their keyboard sideways. They almost like have it like horizontally or vertically. So it's like, yeah, it's curious. They do need the space. Their mouse movement is imperative and to making sure they can play. But back to League of Legends and looking at the meta as a whole, and something that I did want to talk to you about is that we're not really seeing any nerfs towards the top tier AD carries, so Kai'Sa or Samira in the near future at least. And where do you see the kind of the meta shifting towards? Is it going to stay towards that jungle focus in your eyes, or do you think it will move again towards that kind of team fight focus around the AD carry with the way that things are going?
So I'll be honest, I think like the AD carries is going to be the biggest diverging role going into like the second half of the split. We have heard a lot of top laners just talk about that, you know, top lane champions, they don't really win out against each other in a very dominant fashion. And I think most of the draft pivots have been around this bot lane. You have hyper carry roles showing up that, you know, force your team to play more front to back team fight, like the Aphelios coming out. You have Kai'Sa, which I think is the most flexible champion because she could slot into that hyper carry role plus the engage role. She fits into the 1-3-1 compositions because of her semi-global ability as well. And then you have JD Gaming coming out with more poke options like the Senna and the Varus that, you know, lead you into sort of like Nidalee Zoe compositions or Azir and Jace combos coming in from the solo lane. So I think AD carry is definitely the most diverse role and the most defining role for how a team actually functions. And I think LNG is also a great example of that. You know, they're the only team that really gravitates towards this Tristana pick as their siege engine to get their early game started. So that's going to be the most pivotal role, and I think the most deciding role in terms of how teams want to create their identity.
Yeah, it feels like we are moving back towards, and pity Uzi's not able to play or isn't playing right now, because it does feel like we are kind of seeing a rise after a couple of years of kind of the mid laners and the top laners being the focal point of your team. It feels like the AD carries are now becoming the reason why you win or lose a game. It feels like they're the reason why you come into this, because if you have an AD carry that, like you said, can play so many different styles, can play Kalista for early game pressure, can play Aphelios for the late game team fights, can play Kai'Sa to just kind of, you know, catch someone out, maybe look towards someone like you just mentioned with Iwandy and with Light, you know, comboing with the Tristana. There's so many different ways that you can play around your AD carry now that it doesn't feel like what it used to feel like, where it was just feed them a load of gold and late game team fight. It feels like there's definitely loads of different avenues that you can bring your AD carry into this game now.
Bot lane laning is far more important than it was in previous splits. That's something that I think we can all agree on. In previous splits, I don't think that, you know, for instance, teams like IG and Top Esports, they actually typically played very defensive in their bottom lane. I don't think they're going to fly this split. Like, if you told me Iwandy and Jackie Love, you put them together in the lane and you try to make them play in 2020, it just won't work out, because there are a lot more lane kills happening in the bot lane 2v2s. We have things like Alistar, Rel, and Set that all initiate level 1 all-ins really early on and try to burn flashes from the AD carries. There's just a lot of kill threat with Kai'Sa and Plasma combos going down. So I think this is, you know, a split that in a meta that really emphasizes who has the better laning 2v2s.
Yeah, well, ladies and gentlemen, we are finally into the game. We are here and ready to go. We do again apologize for the delay. Same picks, same bans, same compositions as we jump onto the rift for game 1 between LNG and RA. Didn't get quite enough time to talk about it, but I feel like the 2v2 up on that top side, as much as we focus onto the bot lane, the 2v2 top side is going to be so powerful if you can get that Camille and Tarzan, you know, the Camille and Olaf combination going on top of this Gragas. Cube needs to be very respectful of that, because the all-in potential is there, and he needs to be making sure that he's not giving away free kills.
Yeah, but I think Cube, honestly, we've seen a lot of times this Gragas is just such a great pacifier in the top lane. He actually wins out against the Camille for most of the early levels, is what we've seen these trades come down, and I just don't see Rare Adam really spending a lot of time into that top side of the map. They essentially are running double AP with the Udyr and Gragas, so probably not going to pay a lot of visits over there. Meanwhile, in the bot lane, we have some extensive trading going down.
Yeah, they're going in straight away on top of Iboy. He's forced to flash and heal. And this is what we talked about, the early lane pressure you get with a Jarvan Kalista bot lane. And now you have no summoners onto the Jarvan, yes, but you also have no summoners onto your Aphelios. He needs to be so careful. Flash in, and Light picks up the early kill. First blood to LNG.
Yeah, that was really well done. Just the amount of damage coming out from that one was super unexpected, and especially the trade coming in from Iwandy. You know, I think we do have to talk about this Jarvan support a little bit more. We did see Jarvan support being popularized in LCK. It actually popped up in the previous split from Light, and he usually does go a little bit of an AP build. We have seen a lot of Moonstone Renewers coming out recently, and the general idea is you have great level 2 all-in kill combos, and you're very good with the Aerie, and also the E actually adds a lot of attack speed to your duo early on. So it's really good with this sort of on-hit builds, especially with the Kalistas we've been seeing a lot. You have great engages later into the game, you have great utility going into it, and honestly I didn't expect that, but it looks like you have a lot of kill threat just at level 1 too.
Yeah, I feel like with the Rend, you just have so many options to just go in, and the poke that you get with the Aerie is actually insane. The AP ratio on the flag is really high for someone, because obviously traditionally Jarvan is not someone you would, you know, put into that kind of category of someone who will be building AP scaling. So they just kind of made it a little bit higher. It does, of course, give you extra attack speed as well. And you can see Tarzan, Leyan, and Hong. It's actually kind of a 3v3 here. Fofo gets jumped on, but he's the one who's jumping on top of Icon. He's forced to back away. No real mana here for the Azir. He's going to have to reset, as he's already popped all of his pots. This is a bit of a skirmish here. Everyone just kind of posturing for position around this very small objective.
Yeah, I don't think this is one that Rare Adam, can actually win out on. So they're going in. The Scuttle does, of course, go over, and Icon has already teleported. Maybe he's going to find a kill on Leyan.
No, the undertone missing did mean that Leyan was able to get away. He has to expend his flash. And now we can see Iboy and Light going toe-to-toe, but the flag and drag is there. They'll get the knock-up, and this is the danger you have. They land the hook. Light isn't really there to kind of support his support right there, and he will fall down, going a little bit too overzealous. Cleanse instead of heal means there's just nothing helping the Jarvan.
Very well done by Rare Adam, but I'm a little bit surprised that Iwandy actually took that trade. If you look at the river, they had full vision of Hong. So this wasn't a Thresh coming out of nowhere and landing the hook. This was a Thresh that was on their mini-map the entire time. But unfortunately, they still do fall down to him, and that will equalize a lot of the pressure going into the bot lane. We see Iboy picking a kill back up. He has his lane in a good position, and he's also equalized the farm too.
All right, calm down, LNG and RA. We want to talk about the game. We want to talk about this. I'm not even going to get a chance because Tarzan over this top side. We mentioned this at the start of the game. Cube needs to be very respectful of this combination. He lands the undertow, probably going to force the flash out of the big fat man. No, not able to get the flash out of him. He keeps it in his back pocket, but he's going to have to use his teleport to get back to lane.
The fat man has a big heart. He even knows that they don't have the damage to kill him. Nikuya, of course, didn't have any mana for the follow-up there. And this is what we typically see out of the matchup early on. It's that the Gragas can actually bully out the Camille quite effectively in early levels. The Camille really doesn't become a split push threat until that second item of the Ravenous Hydra. So, you know, this is what Rare Item probably planned around all this time. Again, we're going to take a look at the bot lane skirmish. Iboy, even though he fell down first, did get a really good trade early on onto the Kalista. Hong comes in, gets into a perfect position, puts himself between the Kalista and his backline carry, so there's nothing much that Light can actually do to trade any more damage onto Iboy. Iwandy falls, and they equalize the bot lane.
Okay. Can we talk about the game, LNGRA? Can we? But I did want to mention a quick kind of setup here is that, you know, we are seeing a lot of early game trading. The reason for that, I feel, is that LNG are kind of on a timer. The Kalista will only go so far into the early game. Once you hit about 3 items on both AD carries, that's when Aphelios really starts to accelerate much quicker and much more dangerously into that late game, and that's where LNG are really going to struggle. Also, Kalista just notoriously is a very short range carry, someone who has to be in your face, and the longer this game goes on, the less and less you want to have your AD carry in the thick of things. So they need to make this laning phase work for them, and that's why we're seeing so much early game skirmishes from both sides.
Yeah, definitely. I think both of these compositions are really just about shutting down Iboy's progress. Rare Atom want to defend Iboy with their priority coming from mid-jungle, while LNG want to shut them down with this super interesting build of the Olaf and plus the Jarvan combo coming into the bot lane. So we are going to see a lot more action heading there. I definitely think that's going to be the case throughout this entire game. But I do want to talk a little bit more about this Jarvan pick. I think it's super interesting that they're actually pairing the Azir with this Jarvan as well from the mid lane. One of Jarvan's greatest strengths as a utility champion and as a support is that he actually maxes the E, the flag and drag, the flag out first, the Damascene standard, and this ability gives you extra attack speed for all of your teammates surrounding you. So the Azir is going to get a massive buff to his DPS because he mainly uses his auto attacks on those sand soldiers, and this is going to be a very unexpected power spike, I think, coming out from LNG. Their mid 2-item spike is going to be very deadly, and with this Kalista and her Rend capabilities, this is a team that could definitely look to make a Herald play or make a bot swap into a surprise Baron.
Yeah, the once maxed, I do believe it gives you 30% extra attack speed.
It's really high.
Is it 50?
Yeah, it's pretty bonkers.
I will let you triple check that one
Okay.
there as we talk about the rest of everything goes. But we see now Leyan taking the Mountain Drake. That's going to be first objective to the side of RAs. They're already starting those dragons, despite the bot lane perception that they would have the advantage on the side of LNG, so still getting that one set up for them. We can see the Iron Spike Wick picked up there for Tarzan, so he's working towards his Gore Drinker. Sheen up at the top side here for Makuya on this Camille, and Gragas is something we've seen quite a lot into the Camille matchup because it is something that can just absorb all of these early trades just because of his passive. He gains so much healing from that. He's able to stay safe. We can see it there. Just builds a lot of health, which is the perfect resistance when you don't really know what to resistance against. So we can see Icon forced away from this mid lane wave as Hong just keeping him in check, keeping him honest.
Just making an interesting roam here. I love these roams coming in from the support. Your bot lane is holding the wave. You don't really have much to do there. And just try to make sure that Icon has to drop his wards down into the top side of the map just to make himself safe. Love those maneuvers. And I also want to say, Penguin, you were correct. It's actually 30% extra attack speed at max range.
Woo!
It's still a lot of attack speed, but they definitely nerfed it from what it used to be.
Yeah, it used to be an awful lot higher. I think it was back when the first iterations of Jarvan support became a thing, where you just basically gave it massive attack speed steroid. Still a massive attack speed steroid, but just not as ridiculous as we can see Hong throwing in a hook blindly as Iwandy walks towards this mid lane. Just as a quick note, Iwandy will most likely have that maxed out E at around level 9 if he goes around the kind of standard route of leveling up. I think if you go like E, Q, E, and then, you know, basically every single time you can level up the E, you go for that. Should be level 9 by the time he gets that. So we're waiting on to see what they can do there. Now, Rift Herald has been started. Gold is dead even. No one's really finished any major items, except for the chem tank, or the turbo chem tank for Leyan, but I don't think they can get anywhere really near this. And the TP coming down to the bot side to soak up that wave as well. And that's a good rotation from LNG. They're able to pick up the bot wave, they're able to pick up the Rift Herald, and they don't really lose anything in the process.
Yeah, this was a very interesting play from Rare Atom. Essentially what they were doing is they were doing a preemptive defensive lane swap. They wanted to make sure that LNG couldn't just strip their top lane tower. And we have to remind everyone that this is LNG's bread and butter play. What they love to do is they want to swap preemptively, kill the enemy top laner, and just snowball the first tower off of that. So Rare Atom are doing a very well studied play. This is probably something they got from the footage. They swapped to the top lane, but they didn't do it to contest. Cube didn't have his teleport there, so it was going to destined to be a 4v5. Instead, they leave the Herald alone, they make sure they show up top, and they take away the instant Herald play from LNG.
They recognized that they, as you said, did not have the global pressure. They could not respond in kind. Plus, as we've mentioned many, many times, the early game kind of does belong to LNG right now. They are the ones that have the Callista, they have the Jarvan, level 6 for him, so the Cataclysm is available. If you're able to lock up Iboy, Leyan, or even Fofo, or any of these kind of carries that want to try and jump onto the Callista, you could do a lot of work for your team if the Callista's just able to free fire. So it's going to be onto RA to make sure that they recognize those engages and to stop them from really happening. You can see with 3 people into this mid lane, they're just trying to see if they can get anything going for them as the junglers and support just swap like ships in the night. You're now taking care of top side, I'll take care of bot side.
This is super interesting to watch from Rare Adam, and actually they will come out ahead of these trades just because they have their full minion waves pushed in both side lanes before they actually initiated the swap. So they have the tempo on their advantage, and they're continuously denying the pushing power from this Callista and Jarvan lane. They're just making sure that you can't drop the Herald right in front of our towers.
Yeah, they're reacting very, very quickly to any kind of push forward, but when you're covering all the side lanes, that opens up the mid lane to a little bit one there, so they should be able to get some turret plates here onto Icon, so he'll get 300 or 160 gold as 160 goes over to his jungler, so they will get at least something out of it, and it's not, they didn't lose anything for it, so it's still an advantage.
This is what I would usually call a dry herald. It's just a drop for 320 gold. You don't get anything more with it. You don't get pushing potential. And if you're just swapping all your bot lane and getting all your members towards the Herald just to get 320 gold, it usually isn't worth it. We can actually see a good CS lead for the Aphelios, but the mid lane action is actually just gonna fizzle.
Yeah, I feel like Leyan being very respectful of a gore drinker Olaf, and of course Tarzan. Oh, as I say, that great flash Cataclysm down there on top of him, but there's a fantastic culling. He doesn't need to be in range if he's got that available to him. They lose the ignite and the flash from Fofo, but he gains himself a kill.
A lot of damage coming out from the Lucian, and a little bit unfortunate right there. Iwandy wasn't able to body block for his mid laner. They actually get a kill in a 2v3 situation, and this should lead into a very easy dragon.
Yeah, the pop of ward down the bot side, but Tarzan is nowhere near this. And Icon, he's going to be kicking himself for that one. Feels like it was just a little bit of a misstep there. The idea was solid, but just not really setting up the pieces correctly, and it does end up going as a kill to Leyan on this Udyr, who's had a pretty, I suppose, quiet early game, but that's kind of what you want as the Udyr. You're there to build objectives. You're there to be an annoying wall that just runs at carries in those mid to late game team fights, and with the Turbo Chem tag, he is kind of becoming that annoying wall.
I just want to say, though, Rare Adam's early game has been very, very good for them. Let's take stock of all the major points that they want to keep ahead. The Aphelios is up in CS. He rebounded from the kill that they lost early game into the mid lane, and they're also sitting on a two Drake advantage here against LNG's solo lanes, who really want more time to play out the game. Azir and Camille, they want to be hitting their second items before they really think about joining these big team fights. So Rare Adam setting themselves up for a very, very good next 5 minutes into this one, and I feel like it's going to come down to LNG's sort of pick potential to kind of break that trend. They have to use the Shurima shuffle, and they probably have to get Iwandy in on some of a good pick here to stop the momentum.
Good trigger discipline there from Light, recognizing that the Graviton will only keep him in place for so long. Gets himself out. He's got himself a Vampiric Scepter alongside that Doran's Blade, so his life steal to sustain is pretty good right now, as Iboy is going to keep pushing in this wave. Now with 2 dragons, it's unfortunate for RA that it is a Cloud Rift, so not the most highest priority is Cube. And Mikuya going to be trading away some slaps, and this is kind of what we expected. The Gragas shouldn't really be feeling any kind of major pressure because he actually can put down the Hextech Ultimatum on top of the Explosive cast, and he just back away. It's a very even trade either side.
Definitely is for both of these players here. I don't think we're actually going to see any kills in the top lane. Some good mechanics coming out from both of them. Mikuya able to dodge out on the Explosive cast with his own ultimate, but actually still takes him into range for a tower shot right there. So, we are going to see sort of this wet noodle fight go on, but it should be heading into Mikuya's direction slightly afterwards. He does have the Divine Sunder. He's going to be able to go toe-to-toe. And the biggest thing about Camille is that she just scales way too well with the Precision Protocol. That true damage coming out that does transfer the Divine Sunder empowered attack into true damage as well is very, very damaging, and it scales with levels into the late game.
Well, let's have a look at those items right now as we have a bit of a lull state for probably another 2 minutes and 20 seconds until that dragon is taken. Might see something at the Rift Herald, but we'll wait and see if that does happen. But Divine Sunderer versus a Frostfire as well. We see the Gore Drinker and the Turbo Chem Tank. No first item completed here for Icon, but you have gotten Immortal Shield Bow for Fofo. So you can see now this is the sort of small item disparities that are kind of popping up right now because Icon had to go towards that Seeker's Arm Guard to get that early armor to make sure that he wasn't being completely bursted out. It delays that little bit of a spike. Immortal Shield Bow in the bot lane for Light versus the Kraken Slayer for Iboy, so he's well on his way to becoming a scaling teamfight monster. And this is where I feel like RA, they're gonna start to find a lot of advantages. They're the ones that are kind of dictating the pace right now. It feels like LNG, apart from those first few early skirmishes, they're kind of acting proactively rather than reactively. Sorry, the opposite. They're playing reactively than proactively.
Yes,
that was what I meant to say.
I felt like you got that backward, but I get the gist of what you're trying to say here. I think Rare Adam's next few plays are pretty easy to lay out. They have the Herald advantage. And, you know, that Herald is going to last into the Drake, so probably a very simple fork down into the mid lane. Make sure that Fofo and Leyan can get into the river first. They have the setup. They can close down this Raptor ramp with the box. And, you know, they should be able to snowball into a third Drake quite easily. The ball really is in LNG's court to see what they want to do. And like you mentioned, this Kalista really isn't going to scale that well into the late game at all, so they do have a little bit of pressure where if they don't make use of the champion, she's not going to show up that huge later in the later phases.
Yeah, it becomes very difficult for her to really do anything. You can see Leyan, he's just running as fast could be. The one positive from the Cloud Soul is that he gets the Cloud Rift, which just opens him to be so much quicker at taking all of his camps around it. He almost can take them all before they respawn again, which is insane when you think about it. Right now, 15 seconds until that Cloud Drake. LNG are rotating towards that bot side. Top laners both have their teleports and all summoners are available. Ooh, Iwandy gets himself out just about. But now RA, they are the ones that have control over this middle river towards the mid lane and bot side. They are getting a push from Light though. TP used by Icon into the mid lane to make sure he can get that push. And this could be a pivotal fight for this game for both sides.
Leyan still has not dropped the Herald, and it's actually LNG that makes their way into river first. Mikuya also gets a very good trade onto the top lane, so this is a super tense moment. Both of these teams really want to get this Drake, stop the Drake stacking on the side of Rare Adam, and it looks like LNG are going to go for a bit of a mid lane push and force Rare Adam to basically choose if they want to stay in this river or not.
Here we go, Cataclysm in, but there's a hook shot as well. They're trying to jump on top of Fofo. They have got the Hextech Ultimatum. He lands it on top of him. He can't get out. Not even the Dark Passage will bring you out. It's Iwandy from mid lane, but now the Camille is dead. You have your 280. You have your 280 carries available. The Shurima Shuffle is there. They have the Gore Drinker Olaf pushing in on top of everybody. So many low health bars. Leyan will finally fall, and Icon just about keeps his life. It is a fight for LNG that they will come out on top of, and they will stop the dragon stacking.
That was so well timed from Light's Fate's Call and Iwandy's engage. Iwandy did not have a perfect timing right there, so I thought he was gonna die instantly as he went in, but they get the Fate's Call when he was on a sliver of HP. They still get the Cataclysm there. They keep everyone on that very uncomfortable ramp position. They're able to close in with Tarzan, and they walk away with the entire team fight. It was a little bit unfortunate because Rare Adam didn't need to give up the Drake right there, but I felt like the later half of the team fight where Iboy goes in again was probably a little unwarranted. Let's watch the Iwandy engage. Remember, no perfect timing. He actually gets out with less than 100 HP, doesn't die, and even forces out the ultimate from Cube. So that's a massive win right on the start of that one. Also, the flank coming in kills Fofo instantly. I'm really not sure about this one from Iboy. This one for me was, it's probably a little bit much running into an Olaf like that, especially when you don't have your summoners up. So I felt like if they didn't do that move, they probably still could have dragged out the fight and not give an LNG. They might still lose Drake, but they probably wouldn't lose bot tower like that.
Yeah, they don't equal out the gold. There's now 3,500 each. The Rift Herald has to be popped into the mid lane prematurely before it can hit the tower. And you can see RA trying to just escort him in to get a good charge off. He will get it and bring that down to about a third of its HP. They won't gain anything else out of it, and the later Rift Herald is definitely worth a little bit less, I feel, than the early Rift Herald because you don't have those plates to garner from it. Now the ball is in LNG's court again. They got the fight in bot side around that dragon pit. They stopped the dragon stacking, but not only that, they got a huge injection of gold into the the Callista, into the Olaf as well. So they now have the Runan's Hurricane on top of the Immortal Shield Bow, and all of a sudden, it's Light who's ahead of Iboy.
Definitely does seem that way, and right now I think Rare Adam, what's interesting about their item setup is it looks like Fofo is going to be going for a scaling and side lane split pushing Lucian. This is something that we haven't really seen before. We have seen a couple Lucian mids. They've all been going Gale Force in the past into things like Essence Reaver, but right now we are coming up to a build that is very strong in lane. He did go the Immortal Shield Bow with Overheal onto the laning phase, and he does have that scaling option in his pocket with the Mira mana, so he's actually going to be doing a lot of damage into the side lanes. But my only question is, can he actually face up against the Camille? Because if you can't do it against the Camille, essentially you can only split push against maybe the Azir and the light lane. So that's a interesting build that we haven't seen before, but we have to keep track of it and see how it actually does against the 131 potential from LNG.
Well, mid lane turret does go down, and the reason why that one is so important is it opens up the map. It opens up the jungle and top and bot side, makes it a lot harder for RA to keep their vision control around their own half of the map. But for LNG, they're the ones that are going to be finding those picks or looking to try and find them. Actually, curious to see here, Icon rushing the Morellonomicon second. So going straight into that, not going for the Zhonya's with his Seeker's Arm Guard, and just relying on that kind of passive armor that he's getting from it.
I think it's a decent option right now because of the healing coming out from Gragas, Lucian, and Aphelios. So there's a lot of healing that you want to be reducing on the enemy team. We have seen a couple just sitting on the Oblivion Orbs, but of course if you finish the entirety of the Morellonomicon, you do get that 60% grievous wounds. A little bit better than just the 40% with the Oblivion. And I think, again, this next couple of minutes is going to be just playing around the Drake and making sure that Rare Adam can kind of use these picks that they have and the burst potential. They have an earlier presence here around the map. I want to see if they can actually make some use of the explosive cast to maybe find a pick here.
We'll see. Very important to note that Icon's flash not quite up yet, neither is Lights. They try to jump in Hexac Ultimatum on top of Leyan, but a flash away from Makuya. Explosive cast doesn't really gain anything. They get a couple of health bars low. Now you can see this massive unit that is just RA running straight in. They try and jump in with the belly bop, and they go golden for Iwandy as the real fight ensues. Here's the Shurima Shuffle, but he can't get it off. Icon was stunned. He couldn't get the perfect move off for himself, and then it just goes disastrous for the side of LNG, but RA capitalized. Leyan survives, and they don't care about the dragon. They may just go for the Baron.
That's just a straight huge win for Rare Adam. They have perfect positioning for their team fight composition. Iboy was sitting on the ramp the entire time. Nobody was touching him, and when Icon finally went in, it was a great stun, I believe, coming out from Leyan to make sure that the Shurima Shuffle couldn't find its target. So Rare Adam, with their double AD carry composition, they're able to pick up a very easy, uncontested Baron.
That was so unbelievably clutch, because I feel like if Icon can get that Emperor's Divide off, if he can just knock all of that backline right into the hands of LNG and he's not even touched, there is just so much room for him there to be able to just shred through health bars. But it doesn't go that way. Great move from Leyan. I do want to see the replay of that after the Baron goes down. Second Drake goes up to LNG, so they are still miles and miles away from a Cloud Soul point. And LNG, they're trying to just push out the waves as best they can, get as much gold into their pockets, and they're now down 2,000 gold or 2,500 gold.
I'm just a little bit surprised at how haphazard LNG decides to engage in the first place. They really get punished for it. Leyan goes in. They know they're missing a lot of ultimates. Their HP bars aren't looking that good. And this fight really is all about Iboy's positioning. He's sitting there on the ramp. He's very, very comfortable. No one is actually touching him throughout the entire thing. He only gets bounced by the Shurima shuffle, but doesn't even really touch his HP bar at all. They get to win the fight. And I just wonder what the main impetus behind the call for LNG was in that mid lane where they try to go in, but they're doing it again.
They're going in again. Hook does land there onto Icon, so he has to flash away. They will pick up the kill. TP coming down from Rare Adam, but the fight is already dissipated. They've lost one of their Baron buffs. They do gain a flash out of Icon, but you'll take that delay if you're on the side of LNG.
Yep, a really good pick on LNG's part. They also make Cube use a pretty useless teleport. He could have taken this top bot lane tower down already. They still will get the objective at the end, but it definitely slows down their tempo, and now they only have 1 minute left on that Baron buff.
Ooh, big mistakes here from LNG, and I feel like Icon, he's got a bit of jitters right now. It feels like he's kind of getting caught by these things, not really respecting the the distance that he needs to be at. Those hooks, those belly bops, those bear stances from Leyan, they are things that will just, if you're caught by them, you will die. There is no if, buts, or maybes unless you have your summoners available, and right now he doesn't. He's lost his flash. He won't have that for their potential dragon fight in 3 minutes. That could be the differentiating factor between, LNG winning a fight and LNG losing a fight. But for RA, they're scaling nicely. They've almost got the infinity edge here for Iboy. They've got 3 items onto Fofo. They are looking like they're going to be able to kind of just shred through these team fights because it's a much more easy execute in terms of front-to-back team fighting.
Yeah, definitely is the case here, and I think LNG are running out of options. We said this in the draft phase that no team really wants to scale alongside the Aphelios. It's just a losing proposition from the get-go, and there's a lot of protection here for him. He has the Shurelias to kind of move back. If he ever gets tagged by the Hextech ultimatum, I expect Cube to hold on to his ultimate and make sure that he can just bail Iboy out by bopping Mikuya away. So it's very easy for Rare Adam's team fight to just play around him, and unless LNG are able to find rare instances where their 3-man dive combo can just kill Iboy at the start of the fight, it's going to be very hard for them to win anything. Oh, that damage.
You see already, yeah, the damage is starting to stack up here. Fofo is on the Lucian as well, and yes, you're very, very much stacking on top of the AD damage, but it doesn't matter if you're just absolutely shredding health bars, and before they can even get close to you, and having the Calirum available to Iboy will be key in these siege moments. And this is what makes Aphelios such an incredibly diverse and versatile carry, is that because of the amount of guns he has, because he can swap between CC, sustain, the just pure shred, the distance, extra distance on his auto attacks, he becomes so much more difficult in how you approach a fight, because depending on what guns he has, that's what you have to do. That's where you have to look and how you are going to go for it. Does he have short range, long range? Does he have CC? Does he not have CC? These are things you have to think about, and sometimes in the second or two before a fight, you just don't have time.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I think in these team fights, his main gun of choice should be looking for the Severum. LNG do have a triple dive composition that can disregard crowd control quite easily with the Olaf and the Hextech ultimatum, so I think the Severum should be the main choice for him. But for right now, as long as he plays super safe, as long as Cube is constantly looking at Iboy's position, it's going to be super hard for LNG to find any purchase.
Well, they dropped down the Shurima's Legacy into the mid lane turret to stop any kind of a push. We actually do see the Zhonya's Hourglass picked up for both Icon and Iwandy. That is pretty standard for a Jarvan support, considering he is just running into the back line and hoping and praying he doesn't die, being as much of a nuisance in a CC bot as possible. But with 16 seconds into this Cloud Drake, you can see LNG, they're running out of time. I feel like they need to take this fight, because if it goes any longer, they're just going to be too far away, too far ahead in terms of for RA for scaling, for them to really do anything about this. Now, with Dragon spawning, they can shred this one completely, but LNG want nothing to do with it. They want to try and push up mid. They have got the inside track, but they don't really have the minions.
I don't think this is a winning play from LNG. The Baron isn't up. They don't really have any pressure in the top side, and frankly, Rare Adam could just disregard them.
Oh, explosive cast does bring Nakuya down to about a third of his HP. Leyan running in, trying to see if he can be a nuisance. Has the bear stance, does use the smite to slow some people down with the chilling. And they all back away. Dragon goes over to RA, no one else dies, no one blows summoners, and we're gonna wait until most likely Dragon Soul or this Baron in a few seconds.
Yeah, Rare Adam are in a very demanding, commanding position here with that 4K advantage. And it really just goes to show you the difference between scaling in the Aphelios and the Callista. The last we checked on the gold graph, Light was actually still ahead of Iboy. He actually had more gold. He has more CS here, and he even has a bounty. But you cannot feel the existence of this Callista in these team fights compared to Aphelios on 3 items.
Yeah, 3-item with executioners as well to just stop any kind of sustain whatsoever. Your double lifesteal build here for Light on this Callista is going to be very, very muted, is probably a good way to put it. Even the Gore Drinker and the Ravenous Hydra will have a much more diminished effect. So we can see Iwandy just trying to throw in the Demacia standard. Leyan being as annoying as possible, just running at people. And that's all he has to do. He's on 3 items, full armor. He does not care about Icon in this game. He is just caring about Tarzan and Light, and he's going to try and jump on them as quick as possible, land the bear stand stun, and just try and keep his team alive and keep them in the fights.
We do have LNG on the map first. The Baron has already spawned, so they will have this sort of vision and positional advantage over the Baron. I want to see if they try to draw Rare Adam out a little bit. If we remember the first fight that LNG actually won, they were able to catch Fofo out of position, instantly kill him, and then snowball the rest of the fight. This time again, they have a lot of vision dark spots. Let's see if they can find anyone.
Oh, explosive cast knocks everybody away. See the top left, there's a ward there. They could go for a little bit of a TP flank if LNG. They did not spot that, but it's going to be a full 5v5 just at the moment. Here we go. They jump in, Cataclysm down on top of Iboy. Iwandy goes golden. They're trying to take down Leyan. They're trying to see if they can bring him down. Iwandy will fall. They can't kill the Bearman. The Bearman is just too tanky. They have too much damage. They can't shred through these health bars quick enough. Fofo gets knocked into the team, but with these double AD carries, he's straight into the dead arms of Light, and everybody is fallen. It's a massive team fight win for RA. They lose 1, they gain 5, and they're going to be able to take game 1.
LNG wanted to go in because they saw the explosive cast was already used by Cube, but it wasn't enough. The Cataclysm goes down, and Iboy didn't even need to burn his flash to get out of that. He actually just used the Dark Passage incoming from Hong. Great positioning coming from the Thresh support. He pulls Iboy out of danger. The Hextech Ultimatum actually doesn't even land onto the Aphelios, and he gets to dish out 3 damage the entire team fight.
Great execution there on the team fight from RA, and they're even picking up some extra kills on the Fountain, but they will take game 1 and move themselves 1 game away from a much needed positive scoreline for them. Great win.